Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Live Free Now show, episode number 181, where every week I bring you the news, views, tips, and tools you can use to live a free, prosperous, and healthy life. And we're really excited to be broadcasting today. We got a lot of ground to cover. We are going to be joined by my good friend Hakeem later on in the program, Hakeem Anwar of Above Phone. Always excited to chat with him and really impressed with the work that he is doing. Above Phone is also one of the sponsors of the program, so we're always excited to shout out our sponsors. Speaking of our sponsors, we do have a new sponsor on board. That is our good friend Jonathan England over at Earth Waking Village. Now, he's putting on this free webinar. They do it regularly. Really powerful message that they convey here about taking control of your life, about just being the best version of yourself. And it really centers around creating an eco community or moving to an eco community. Anyway, you can check that out at offgriddreamlife.com, offgriddreamlife.com. It looks like the next one's coming up November 6th. Go ahead and get signed up now to enjoy that incredible free webinar. So shout out to our sponsors. Really excited. Ryan Manitti, who's going to be joining me regularly on the program, he helped to get some of these sponsors in. They're just really enable us to focus more on delivering the best quality show that we can, putting more attention into finding awesome guests and really just doing everything we can to make the most out of this opportunity to communicate with you lovely folks. So, all right, hey, so as you know, we have the Exit and Build Town Hall coming up. The Exit and Build Town Hall is going down October 24th, which is tomorrow. If you just joined us, October 24th, if you're watching the replay of this, you'll be able to watch the replay for a little while at exitandbuild.com. So you can sign up at exitandbuild.com. But what we're going to be talking about is politics, politricks. Really, we're going to be sharing how if we want real freedom in our lives, which I assume is your desire if you're watching this show or listening to the podcast after the fact. If you want real freedom in your lives, we're going to have to take responsibility for creating that freedom, okay? Again, if you want real freedom in your life, you're going to have to take responsibility for creating that freedom. We can't rely on politicians to do that for us because, unfortunately, and this is even the case when Ron Paul was running for office. But unfortunately, the politicians at the end of the day aren't really about the freedom that I desire. And again, I assume if you're watching this show, you really care about freedom, the philosophy of liberty, genuine freedom and liberty, as in living a life where you're able to act according to your own ends, your own values, so long as you don't interfere with another person's ability to do that same thing, right? That's what I'm after. And there aren't any politicians running for office right now that are seeking the same thing. I mean, maybe there's some obscure Libertarian Party member, but if you've heard my position on the Libertarian Party, it's largely irrelevant in my view. So if we're going to create that real freedom, then we got to take responsibility. We got to engage in creating the alternative systems that will help to ease the way towards living that free life. It's going to take a lot of work, and I get it. We're all exhausted in various ways. Maybe some people are eating right and working out all the time, and they're full of energy and vitality. But I can tell you what, I've been pretty exhausted lately, to be brutally honest. We got a lot of stuff going on at the homestead, family life, here at the businesses, big ambitions. But one of the things I recognize is people are exhausted, not to mention the currency in the United States and other countries that is being debased, meaning it's being inflated, and the value of every single one of those units of currency is going down. And what that results in is people having to work harder in order to maintain the same standard of living. So to bring it back to my point, it's no wonder that a lot of people are putting hope in some politician coming in and fixing things, because so many people are exhausted and downtrodden to the point where they feel as though they don't have the energy or the capability of fixing things on their own. All right, so I totally understand why. This exit and build thing, I realize more and more, it's really it's an intergenerational thing. And while there's 2 tracks, exiting and building in your own household, we're going to go in depth in this in the town hall. Again, you can sign up at exitandbuild.com, exitandbuild.com for the town hall we're doing. There's 2 tracks when it comes to this whole exit and build thing. Track A is exiting and building in your personal life, in your household, your family, learning to trade in cryptocurrencies, raising the kids outside the system, growing your own food, connecting with other freedom lovers, moving out of the city, buying land and connecting with the neighbors, or buying land cooperatively to do an intentional community, right? Those are all engaging in privacy tech, like getting an above phone privacy laptop or an above phone privacy de-Googled phone. This is all individual stuff we do on the exit and build path that helps to create more freedom for yourself. And I tell you what, it's a lot of work, but that'll bear more fruit faster than this bigger picture wholesale change that comes when we cooperatively collaborate on the exit and build front. All right, so again, 2 tracks. Track A, exiting and building in your individual household. Track B, coming together as a freedom community and engaging in organized effort to exit and build on a mass scale so we can establish freedom communities and really create the free society that we all desire. And this latter path is a intergenerational path that's going to take a lot of work. And to bring it back again to the point I'm trying to make is that it makes sense why people are so excited about voting, because they believe, and in some instances this is the case, but when it comes to radical change, it's most definitely not the case. They believe that this change will happen faster with less work from them. And as an entrepreneur, I'm all about low input, high output activity, but I got news for you, folks. Unfortunately, I strongly believe that many people are being sold a bill of goods if they were to believe that, for example, Donald Trump is actually going to create greater freedom, or at least the freedom that we all desire. And here's the thing. I'm going to address this too, because this is a common objection that I'm getting. People are like, well, it doesn't take but 5 minutes to go out and vote. So we can exit and build and vote as well. All right, so to be crystal clear on this one, let me know in the chat as well. I see folks are coming into the YouTube stream. Let me know in the chat where you guys are tuning in from. Would love to know where we got folks. Oftentimes we got folks from all over the world tuning into the show. So I want to make the point that voting and voting alone is simply going to keep people trapped in a perpetual cycle of revolution, where one party's in power, then those guys are despicable, they throw out the other party. The pendulum keeps swinging to the left and the right in the United States with this false duopoly system. And it's all the while people are caught into this politics cycle. So if you're only voting, I believe it's not going to bear the fruit that we desire. It'll only make things marginally better, if that. It's an illusion in many instances that it's better. If you are voting and exiting and building, then that's great, but I just really want to caution people, because I think a lot of people, spiritually and practically speaking, put false hope into some of these leaders, and it allows them to take their foot off the gas when it comes to the urgency and intensity of bringing about change. All right, so again, if you're going to vote, by all means, go vote, but most definitely don't allow voting to be the only thing that you do. And let me just hit a little bit more, just this false illusion that Trump's a freedom guy. I've been doing more studying and more research to sort this whole stuff out, but I got to tell you, I do not believe that Trump is a freedom guy, and I've just been struggling to wrap my head around how people give Trump a pass. Freedom people, right? Freedom people that are normally just completely so critical of all politicians, and even go out of their way to be critical of politicians. But the challenge is whenever a politician that they support slips up, then they go ahead and make excuses for them. When they don't give the benefit of the doubt to any other politician. And one of the biggest key things where I see this happening, of course, is when it comes to Donald Trump and Operation Warp Speed. All right, and we've actually prepared a funny video. I don't want to call it a political advertisement because we don't actually expressly advocate to vote for or against someone else. We do encourage you to vote for no one, I should say. But let me play this video for you guys, and I just want to position it position it with the understanding that there's some really egregious things that some politicians have done, and I think the most egregious, I think I could safely say this, perhaps the most egregious, was all the stuff that went down during COVID, especially this crazy toxic shot that was administered. And we're streaming to YouTube, so I guess we got to be careful what we say here, but this toxic shot, you know what I'm talking about, was led and spearheaded by the Trumpster, and people are giving him a pass. And so even if he was duped, then what does that say about his leadership capabilities or the spine that he may have to stand up and resist what is obviously something that was an entrenched military psyop, Great Reset psyop being carried out against the public. But check out this little video that we put together, encouraging you guys to see the forest for the trees when it comes to the Donald. Donald Trump promised to protect our freedom, but let's look at what he really delivered.
Today I want to update you on the next stage of this momentous medical initiative. It's called Operation Warp Speed.
Winning matters, and we will deliver, by the end of this year, a vaccine at scale to treat the American people and our partners abroad.
And he wasn't alone in this. Trump teamed up with the Department of Defense to make it happen, treating the vaccine rollout like a military operation.
When a vaccine is ready, the U.S. government will deploy every plane, truck, and soldier. That means the full power and strength of military.
The Department of Defense will ensure our success. And Mr. President, thank you.
And still to this day, in spite of massive negative health outcomes, Trump's still boasting about Operation Warp Speed, standing by the shots he pushed through.
But I'm very proud of what we did. I saved worldwide tens of millions of lives.
Is this what freedom looks like to you? This election, it's time to break free from politicians who sell us out. Vote for nobody. Exit and build instead. Join us for the free Exit and Build Town Hall, where we'll discuss real solutions that exist outside the ballot box. Sign up today for free at exitandbuild.com. Donald Trump promised to... All right. Okay. All right, I think that's a bit of fun that we're having there, of course. But it's not fun what took place. And it's even less fun that the fact that there's so many people giving this guy a pass. And it would be one thing if it was like, everybody, I know, I am the greatest president ever. In fact, I'm a pretty solid guy all the way around. Great guy, great businessman, great husband, great father to my kids. Great president. But nobody's perfect, even though I come pretty close. Nobody's perfect. I make some mistakes, and I did happen to make some mistakes with the Operation Warp Speed. So I hope you guys understand. I've since now become a huge advocate of justice for the victims of that shot, and best advocate, right? That's not what happened, my friends. He has doubled down since then. In fact, maybe not in the past 6 months or so, but still recently he's been saying that it's the best thing since sliced bread. Maybe he finally got advice from his campaign that he sounds like an absolute moron because his base is so worked up about the shot and the lockdowns, which he also put forward. But the fact that he doesn't have the spine or the humility, which is something that he lacks immensely, to come in and be like, yeah, that actually was an error. I'm sorry. I was so motivated about that. I thought I was helping. That should just be such a big red flag for people. But it's not. And then there's all sorts of other things. For example, all these RFK Jr. supporters that were so vehemently opposed to Trump at the time, they were campaigning against Trump, as was their guy, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Now all of a sudden they think Trump is God's gift to health, even though he's like going to McDonald's and making a big show of serving these poisoned foods to working class people. You know, it's like, oh my God. And then all the other excuses too, and turning a blind cheek to what's happening in Gaza and all sorts of stuff. I've been trying to wrap my head around what's really going on here. And I think there's two factors at play. One, this whole lesser of two evils thing is just so damn strong and powerful, the lesser of two evils deal, that it enables people to have clouded judgment because they're so frightened of what the other side is going to be like. Of course, I'm talking about Kamala in the U.S. And the challenge is, it's if you haven't been paying attention for a while, as I have, more than half of my adult life, it's always the lesser of two evils every single presidential election. And additionally, it's always the most important election of our lifetime. So when I see people that I know and am close with say that, I'm like, oh my goodness, it's a total Kool-Aid show. So that's one of the reasons why people often act out of integrity and don't hold their politicians and themselves accountable. Another reason is, there's Vanessa coming in from Brooklyn. Go Brooklyn. Go Brooklyn. And Catherine Martin from Mississippi. What up, Catherine? Another reason why I think people are so quick to give politicians a pass or to ignore glaring inaccuracies and inconsistency the politicians' positions have compared to their own values is, I think, like, ego gets in the way. And when someone's your guy and you've promoted them, campaigned for them, advocated that people go support them, your ego gets tied into that advocacy to where when someone presents information about errors in that person's judgment, philosophy, or ways that that person's position is antithetical to values that we believed you held, people don't want to allow that to be the truth, because then it'll mean that they were somehow wrong. And I think this is a big indicator as well of how the COVID psyop was so powerful, because people were right off the bat. Even I, in the beginning, was like, I told my family, we got to go get some N95 masks, seeing what's happening in China. I remember there was like videos of people dying on the street. And then, of course, that never happened anywhere else. I don't know if you guys remember that. Pretty goofy. And I was like, we got to get N95 masks. And I was all conspiracy researcher. I should have seen it right away. I saw it pretty early. But in the beginning, I was like, this could be bad. We don't know how bad it's going to be. I even sold KN95 masks in the very beginning because there was a large demand for them because they weren't in the country. Sold colloidal silver hand sanitizer too. But then once I realized, like, oh, wait a second. This is a psyop. How could I have been duped? Anyway, people that bought in early on and then later, and then they took all these actions. Maybe they ostracized their family member. Maybe they got all worked up. They talked down to someone or whatever it may be. Because in the beginning they put so much sustenance into those arguments, they gave it so much credence, and then they associated their identity with somebody that wears a mask and gives people dirty looks if they're not washing their hands, they're not honoring the 6-foot social distancing. What a weird episode that we lived through. I pray that it doesn't come back. I know it ain't going to come back for me and my family, that's for sure, living out in the country. Because their identity was wrapped up in that, just the same because people's identities are wrapped up in Trump or RFK Jr. or the Libertarian Party, then they have to double down on that false thinking so as to maintain the integrity of the illusion. Because for some strange reason, well, it's not a strange reason, we know what it is. Myself included, I've done a lot of work on this, but there's still more work to do. People are weak because oftentimes so many people never really learned how to manage their ego. You know, it's not about killing your ego. It's about being at peace and leveraging your ego for survival, for thriving, but putting it in check. And because people are so damn fragile, maybe their parents gave them a hard time. Maybe they were bullied in high school or middle school, whatever it may be. Maybe they just have self-esteem issues because the culture and the media props up this false image of what perfection looks like. And we're not capable of being, many people are not capable of just being like, whoa, I was wrong. I made a mistake. Oh, you know? And unfortunately, I think it's an important piece of what we're all doing, that we all move forward with humility. And that's another thing about Donald Trump. And you know, everyone thinks he's this great leader, but I don't think he leads by example, because he rarely, if ever, admits fault. And I think that there could be so much ground gained if he were to admit fault when it came to the whole stupid COVID nonsense, warp speed BS. Yeah, it's a weird world we're living in, folks. And, you know, let me get back to a couple more reasons. We're going to be joined by Hakeem Anwar here in a sec. Look, Vanessa's dropping. Vanessa's like, oh, he's talking about integrating the ego. This is my wheelhouse. Let's go. Integrating the ego so it doesn't rule your life. That's right. That's right. Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it'll direct your life and it will call your fate. Absolutely love it, love it, love it. You know, I came across a funny meme, and thanks everybody for joining in. I always take great pleasure out of the folks joining and tuning in live. So we're going to be doing the show most definitely every single Wednesday moving forward. We may be adding some more days as well. But I definitely want to encourage you guys to tune in live as often as you can. Ryan's going to be joining me oftentimes. And like I said, we got some sponsors on the program, which we're real excited about. Let me, before we go to our guest, who's going to be breaking a couple things down, I invited him last minute because I saw this really cool clip that he played. And it really caught my attention because I'm a big Monero fan. And apparently the IRS has been snooping around Monero, trying to stir some stuff up, but they're going to be sorely disappointed. But I saw this funny meme, and it was, you know, the Ben, what's his name? Ben Affleck, I guess, the guy that used to date J-Lo, and he's like, has his hand in his pockets, and he's all upset, like, It's Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s head superimposed on this Ben Affleck meme, and he's like, I'm trying to partner with Trump about make America healthy again, and here he is, cooking up some fries and seed oil for everybody. Anyway, I got a good kick out of that, and it just reminded me right now, if you really do care about your health, I tell you what, just the same as our entire message is about creating real freedom in our lives, taking responsibility for our lives. I'm not going to say that RFK Jr. being at the head of the FDA or the CDC or the USDA or whatever wouldn't provide some benefit. But I tell you what, folks, these major companies, they're going to company. Corporations are going to corporation. Statists are going to state. And if you really do care about your health, it ain't going to be a bureaucracy or some politician that's going to make a difference in your life. It's going to be you taking proactive steps and taking control of your health. And one of the first steps to taking control is being aware of what the root issues you're facing may be. And on that note, I want to invite you guys to check out our good friend Christian Yordanov. Christian Yordanov is offering a free metabolic function assessment session, completely free. Total expert, this guy. Ryan's lovely wife worked with him together on dealing with some issues, some eczema on her hands. She had dramatic results. You can go to livelongerformula.com, livelongerformula.com to check out your free metabolic function assessment. Christian's been doing this for quite some time. He's written quite a few books as well. But it's a free 45-minute consultation that you get to do with Christian. So if you're struggling with stress, physical ailments, if you're struggling to get out of bed, if you're having trouble sleeping, check out the Live Longer formula and sign up for this free assessment today. There'll be an assessment. Then he'll help you to address the problems, and finally he'll work with you to align your actions with what he is teaching, and he'll help you with some accountability as well. Again, the website for you guys to join is livelongerformula.com. That's livelongerformula.com, one of the sponsors of this program. Okay, let's go ahead and bring up Hakeem here, Mr. Hakeem Anwar, and I'm gonna knock on the door because Ryan just got here, and of course he's being loud in the office. Hold on one sec. Keep it down. I had to do my grumpy
Hey, John, can you hear me?
labor thing there. Mr. Hakeem, can you turn your camera on? We'd love to have you join us there, my friend. Hakeem Anwar in the house. Right there, Hakeem. Come at me, Hakeem. Hakeem.
Hey, I'm live.
All right, we're going to keep rocking and rolling. Let me go ahead and play this video that Hakeem did about Monero, and then we'll get his questions on it. And Hakeem doesn't know this yet, but I intend to invite him on the show regularly to give us updates when it comes to tech. Let me know in the chat, do you guys feel comfortable with your tech game? Are you well-versed when it comes to tech stuff? Let me know. Oh, I just got a message from him. I just got a text from my internet provider that said they're going to work on the lines. Always has issues. All right, let me see. Can you do hotspot? Mobile hotspot. All right, well, perfect timing on that front. So let me go ahead and play this video for you guys, because this is what I intended to play and then to get his feedback. But let me know in the chat. I'm always monitoring the chat. How is your tech privacy game? How's your tech privacy game? And I'll tell you mine. I just got this above laptop from Hakeem and Company, so I'm excited to try that out. Oh, Hakeem said not sure if you can hear me. Hakeem, you there?
Hey, John, can you hear me?
Oh, there he is. How are you?
Sweet. I'm doing well, man. Yeah, I'm gonna be off video today, but yeah, we can still get into some good stuff.
All right, we're going to have a phantom voice coming in from Hakeem. Let me know in the chat. Can you guys hear Hakeem just fine? Let me know if you can hear Hakeem just fine. Some said feedback was detected. I think it should be fine, though. Hakeem, coming at you.
Yo.
Let me know if you guys can hear Hakeem. We're doing a different setup here, but let me know in the chat if you guys can hear him.
Can you guys hear me? Am I coming through? How's everyone doing today?
I'm doing good.
Everyone's having a good day out there.
How are you today?
John, you doing good? I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Things have been really busy, but in a good way. We're excited for November. It's going to be a really big month for us. We got all these new products coming out, and yeah, I'm glad you got the above book in your hands, showing that thing off.
Yeah, excited to try it out for sure. I took a look around it because I know I've done some stuff when I did Bitcoin mining with Linux, and I tell you what, it was a total pain in the butt, and I had to do all sorts of stuff. Like I had to learn new skills using command line, which was kind of a pain in the rear. But I noticed that you guys have this whole graphic user interface that's basically like Windows, as far as like clicking on icons and then little windows or applications open up. Can you tell me about that? Like what people that are nervous about Linux or already nervous with a Windows computer, what's the user experience like for them?
Yeah, totally. So so this is a Linux-based computer, right? So all the software on this computer is open source. You can see what it does. It doesn't have that AI in it that you'd have on a Windows laptop. And you might think that, hey, this is going to be completely different from a Windows laptop. But no, we learned a lot of good lessons. Like from Windows, from Apple, on how to make it easier for people. And one of our goals with this computer was to make it so you don't have to use the terminal at all. Like, so you won't need to turn on the terminal to install stuff. There's a little user interface you can use to install programs. Like, you can even get your junk food applications if you wanted to, Spotify, Zoom, all that kind of stuff. So just like a point and click type of thing. And it already comes pre-installed with most of the best software you would need. I'm talking like Microsoft, like an Office suite that's compatible with Microsoft Office documents. All that kind of stuff is already on the computer. So yeah, people have been loving it. We've been this second version of our Above book been on sale for a few months, and then in November we're going to be coming out with a whole bunch of other models, and I'm sure I'll be back to talk about that.
Excellent, excellent. Hey, that video you did about Monero, do you have that on Odyssey or YouTube or something?
It's on Substack and also on Odyssey. My Substack is tbot.substack.com. Yeah, and so a little preamble to the video. Yeah, so I mean, John, did you hear about this when it first came out? It's kind of hilarious. Like, the IRS has office hours with Chainalysis. And they just sit around and they talk about how can we surveil people, and they give demos. And so
can you share what is Chainalysis for folks that may not know?
They call themselves a blockchain data company, but you read between the lines, they're spying on every cryptocurrency out there. They're spying on it, and the way they do that is they run their own nodes, right? So they can see what transactions are being processed.
Jerks.
It just makes it easier for people to drill into it. So some intern at Chainalysis, he ended up publishing this office hours video, which is only meant for the IRS criminal investigations division to watch, right, for training. And it's just hilarious. Like, oops, we accidentally published it to the well. So this was, I believe it came out in August, and I've been watching it since and like trying to dial down to the issue. So, I mean, I don't know if you want to play that video, but it's a good intro.
Yeah, let me see if the audio will come through. So I meant to download it and then drop it into my Wirecast program, but it wasn't downloading for some reason from old unless you could send me the raw file in Telegram. It wasn't downloading for some reason. So let's see it. Let me know if you guys can hear this audio. Ready? Here we go. Let me pull it up there. Here we go.
No, nothing from my end.
I don't think that you'll be able to hear it, but I didn't see it coming through there either. Let me try one more thing. La 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 la. No, we're just gonna. I mean, it's just you talking. So
yeah, I've got some clips, and we can just talk about it too. But I mean, the gist of it is that so just going back to the IRS's history, right? They've always wanted to figure out what's going on with Monero, and in 2020 they did a request for proposal, and they were just like, oh no, we can't figure out what's going on in this private cryptocurrency. And they weren't just asking about Monero, they were asking about Bitcoin Lightning, Dash, some of these other currencies. And so they offered $650,000 to two companies, and one of them was Chainalysis, right? And then they liked what apparently, so they started working together. They released support to trace Bitcoin Lightning 3 months after the contract ended. So that's kind of peculiar, right? That's like coming from IRS and Chainalysis working together. I mean, it could have been Chainalysis' own work, but it's quite a big coincidence that the IRS put out a request for Bitcoin Lightning and then allowed Chainalysis to release this as a product. And then they went on to do a $22 million contract together. And guys, this is the important part. Like, this is not just IRS looking at like tax fraud and stuff. If you look at the different departments that have access to the software, it's the Criminal Investigation Division, Cyber and Forensic Services. So that might be, all right, focused on dark net markets. I get it, right? Got to go after those drug dealers. But then also small business, self-employed, in the Office of Fraud Enforcement. So, that's coming after the businesses, man. And as an entrepreneur, this is the lifeblood of our nation. And I don't know why they're trying to step on that, make our lives harder, but that's what it is.
Those jerks. Hey, I got the video set up, so let me go ahead and drag it here to my trusty platform, and then we'll hear it, and then I'll have some questions for you, and then we can also go to questions from YouTube about this. And then before we let you go, I definitely want to let you invite folks to this free webinar that you're doing tomorrow, because I think a lot of people are going to get value out of that. But let's hit this video here real quick, and then we'll take some questions from the audience watching on YouTube.
Welcome back, my friends. This is Take Back Our Tech. I'm your host, Hakeem Anwar. And today we're going to be speaking about an important subject that we have never covered in the 3-year history of TBOT, which is cryptocurrency. And even though I've been using Bitcoin since 2012, the reason I started using cryptocurrency was because I didn't want anyone to tell me what to do with my money. I didn't want them to look at what I was spending my money on and have a say in that. And I think that was a novel sentiment at the time. I don't know if you resonate with that, but that's why I was attracted to Bitcoin. And fast forward to today, I think everyone's pissed off and maybe more in alignment with that viewpoint. Because one, we're watching a lot of global currencies just collapse, lose value, and we're also not feeling confident about what our money is being spent on, how much it inflates every year, and how we lose purchasing power, and how it is a struggle for many people right now. And while we are struggling, we see what our tax dollars are going towards, and we're just losing faith and confidence in money. And so we're looking to these alternatives, we're looking to Bitcoin, Monero, and other cryptocurrencies, and I just think it's really important that we're aware of the consequences of using one or the other. So I neglected to go into this topic because I didn't feel like there was enough information available. But more recently, thanks to this leak, this video we're going to see about a Monero investigation that supposedly cracks Monero, but it totally doesn't, has changed my mind and has evoked stronger feelings of what I feel the right cryptocurrency for people to use is. And for me, that is Monero. So without any preamble, that's why this is so important. And you're going to want to watch this all the way to the end. We've also got an article on takebackourtech.org. It's been a while since we published it, so please check that out. And also shout out to our illustrator, Uli XYZ, who's done some amazing art for this article. Okay, let's get into this. So this is this cat and mouse game that is being played. Darknet markets had their rise, and they showed for the first time ever that people could transact out above the law, outside of the law. And it freaked a lot of regulatory bodies and agencies out. And so there was this catch-up game that they had to play, and we'll talk about how that happened in America. But now the law enforcement, these regulatory bodies, and these blockchain surveillance companies have joined forces together to combat this issue. And who remains on the other side? Who's actually on the other side of the playing field? Who's going up against these organizations that are at the highest levels of sophistication and funding? Literally just a bunch of nerds and nodes. Nerds and nodes. A bunch of Monero nerds and nodes. Because as we'll see in this investigation, they tried their hardest, and they had as many tools in their tool belt as they could to try and trace Monero transactions. But instead of showing that Monero was compromised or was traceable, as some other people made it out to be, like CoinDesk, when this video first came out, it showed that other cryptocurrencies were cooked. By cooked, I mean just completely surveillable, controllable. I think it made that obvious to anyone who watches the video. So this is the saga of crypto anarchy. Anyone who believes in these ideas of financial privacy and financial freedom, you're caught in the middle, and your choices are going to matter. So watch with me all the way to the end. We're going to be talking about first the history of trying to trace Monero, and that starts in 2020, where the IRS, they were Internal Revenue Service, which makes sure people pays their taxes in the United States. They were feeling a little bit not confident about tracing private cryptocurrencies, so they put out this public request. The Criminal Investigation Division specifically, and they were looking to be able to perform investigations on users of private cryptos, such as Bitcoin Lightning, which is not a private crypto. I mean, I guess you could argue that, but Monero, ZEC, Dash, and others that I'm not completely familiar with. But the focus for this is Monero, because it is the world's most private cryptocurrency. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to be able to pinpoint behavior associated with a particular user and see who they're associating with, who they're exchanging with, and to be able to pull up more information on that person without having to write code. They didn't want to write code. They wanted a nice little GUI, graphical user interface. And based on putting out this request for proposal where they offered $625,000 to any company that got approved for this contract, there's two companies that won the contract. Chain Analysis was one of them. The other company isn't of great importance because they didn't end up doing anything with the contract, but Chain Analysis and the IRS are working together to this day. And a lot of work was done as part of their original contract. I mean, we saw Chain Analysis support tracing Bitcoin Lightning 3 months after the first contract, and that was in December 2021. So the IRS liked what they were seeing with Chain Analysis, and they gave Chain Analysis another contract, this time worth $22 million, which gave them 620 seats on the software, investigators, seats to use the software, access to the API, training, conferences, the whole shebang. And I guess part of this was the video that was leaked. It was during the IRS Criminal Investigations Division's office hours. They would have office hours where Chain Analysis representatives would train the IRS on how to use their tools. And one of these videos was leaked. It's a 35-minute long video, and it was leaked. And that is the most accurate information to date about the highest levels of sophistication that they could use to try and spy on the Monero blockchain and get information on users. So, with all that being said, I've uploaded the video to our Odyssey in case you want to watch it in full. And I've also uncovered things that I think are unique observations about it, such as finding the original investigation that they were talking about. So the first thing we'll speak through is how Bitcoin and Monero are different. And if you know the fundamentals of Monero, you may want to skip over this part and get to the fun stuff, which is the investigation and kind of how the tool works. But it's important to understand the privacy-preserving properties of Monero, so we'll talk about that for a few minutes. As you know, Bitcoin is a completely transparent blockchain. Monero is not. There's a few different reasons why. Another thing that's shared between the two of them is the unspent transaction output model, which a good way to think of it is every transaction is broken up into bills, and instead of all the bills in your account, and that's how you keep track of how much cryptocurrency you have to actually go back in time on the blockchain, look at every transaction, and see which bills ended up in your pocket. So you have to go back and scan the blockchain, and you get to a final calculation of how many bills are in your wallet. All right, that's a very simple way of explaining it. You can look up the UTXO model if you want more info. Welcome back, my friends. This is Take.
Okay, good stuff. You got super in depth on that one. And as I was watching and listening, I was also reading the article that you wrote. Is that all your research with the article, breaking all that down? I mean, not that you were there with the IRS with that thing, but you took their info and then analyzed it all like that.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I lean into as part of like the tech journalism. And I once I once I learned about the video, I had so many questions. It's like, okay, how did they get the data? Like, am I really at risk as a Monero user? And I couldn't really stop until I researched as much as I can. And yeah, I ended up going to the Monero community and asking them too what they thought about the video. It was kind of interesting. Not many of them had watched the video. And I got some responses from someone in the Monero research lab, which was really awesome. But just going back to something I said in the video, it's interesting to think. Like there's sometimes these people in our community, John, and I think you know who I'm talking about, that are like, oh, these tools and stuff we need to learn, and what's the point anyways? Because there's always going to be something that they're going to use to crack it, right? They're watching everything. Well, it's exactly in cases like these where we realize, hey, no, they don't actually have as much power as we might think. They're doing their best, but they're just human, right? And there are projects out there that are protecting our transaction information, and so Monero is one of them. Like as they say several times in the interview, they talk about Dandelion, which is it's a feature of Monero that hides IP addresses for transactions. So normally, like let's say I run a malicious node. So I've got this malicious Monero node and people are connecting to it, broadcasting transactions. That's coming from an IP address normally, right? An address on the internet. But in 2021, they released this new update, and it basically caused a transaction to go through multiple nodes before it actually is broadcasted to the network. So there's an anonymization stage and a broadcasting stage, which is why you can't be sure that that's the original source of the transaction. So they talk about that. The investigator does talks how that feature of Monero makes it completely unreliable. So they don't have many cards to go on. And really, what I found through talking with Monero Research Lab and doing as much research as I could is that they got most of their information from an exchange, right? This exchange, they're called Morph Token. And simply because they had all of the real information about the first exchanges into Monero, they had an idea of how much Monero this address had. They had an idea of when it was sent originally. And what this person did was he took all this Monero and he moved it quickly. And that's what they were looking at. They were looking at something called the co-spends, which is like going back to this bill analogy, right? Let's say I give John $1,000. And John takes those 10 $100 bills and he moves them to another transaction. Normally in Monero, all of the bills are mixed up with other decoy bills. But if you see 9 of the 10 bills in another transaction, you have to wonder, hey, those all can't be decoys. Someone who is sharing control of the bills that John got is now making that transaction. And it was through this way that, one, having all the previous knowledge about Morph Token, and then two, seeing these transactions in succession was how eventually how this investigation led to this darknet market admin. So that's I think that's like the main takeaway from this is there are private ways that you can use Monero. Part of that is avoiding that timing analysis. Part of that is not taking all your Monero and moving it at the same instance. And they're also working on improving these things within Monero. But part of it is that the other part is also understanding the techniques that the IRS and Chainalysis use to trace blockchains. Like with Monero, it's still quite difficult, right? There's a reason why most darknet markets have now moved to Monero. But we see that they're going to set up false nodes. We see that they're going to request data from any exchange in and outside of their jurisdiction. In this case, Morph Token was based in Panama. So it's like, the United States doesn't have jurisdiction over Panama, at least not legally. We've been involved with setting up their new government. So, you could argue that they have influence that way. But this company just agreed with them. And at the end of the day, how this person got caught was that his final transaction to another exchange, he wasn't using a VPN. It literally just took one mistake to find him, right? So when going back to all these privacy techniques that I recommend, like using VPNs, and those things are actually important. They work. Yes, the global internet traffic is being monitored on a mass scale, but when they actually want to target your investigations, they require you to leave a trail, and to do these things is a way of hiding that trail. And I think it's just really important for us to know as we get deeper and deeper into our businesses in our community.
Good stuff. And I think you make a good point too, that it's an ongoing arms race. And there's people that are just predisposed against cryptocurrency. And so they'll see a story like this and throw the baby out with the bathwater and just see it as this big defeat. But in all reality, this is the nature of the game that we're playing. When we are seeking freedom and privacy in an unfree and increasingly surveilled world, we have to take and use the best tools that we have at our disposal. And Monero most definitely is that best tool. And while It gets more complicated when we're looking at running our own Monero node, for example, which is something that I haven't yet set up. I have the GUI wallet, the main Monero graphic user interface wallet, and I downloaded that. And I'm not running it all the time. I need to do that, though, just for my own learning practices. But it does get slightly more complex. What's that? Oh, yeah, do it on the above book. That'll be a great demo for sure. I will do that. And I just want to encourage people to continue learning, to continue having hope, to not wait until central bank digital currencies are fully implemented to where cash maybe is outlawed someday, to go ahead and push yourself beyond your comfort zone, learn this technology, and of course, let us not forget good old-fashioned meeting up in person, having a swap meet, trading, bartering, silver coins. That's all a big piece of this puzzle. But when it comes to transacting online in an increasingly online world, Monero is a great tool. And one key piece too, as you pointed out, was a lot of information was revealed because they were using a centralized exchange service called Morph Token. There's all sorts of different ones, and that does reveal some data. Let us also not forget too, I think we're still a ways off before it's like 110% surveillance, as in omniscience. Right now, it's expensive, it's cumbersome. They're still trying to develop their own surveillance technology as the freedom community and technologists are further developing privacy technology. But it's not necessarily the case that the full weight of the federal government, the Department of Justice, combined with Chainalysis and private sector partners are going to come down on you for swapping that $500 worth of Bitcoin into Monero. Who knows if in the future they retroactively try to come after everyone? We can only hope that our exit and build movement and our efforts to opt out make it very challenging for them to even bother with us, because we're in the private realm now and we're out of their city surveillance centers. But what do you think about that prospect as far as how powerful and far-reaching is this right now? Are they reserving this level of scrutiny for kingpins? Do you believe we should go ahead and practice 110% operational security anyway? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this because I was recently at this festival in Tennessee and with homesteaders, and I'm seeing a lot of them are interested in Bitcoin, or actually saying, "Hey, let's invest your money in Bitcoin. Do it." And then, kind of after like researching this article, I'm thinking like, yeah, but how much is it? Is it a trap actually? Because we know the new that new line on the tax form: Are you holding cryptocurrency? And then most people are getting it through exchanges like Cash App or Coinbase or something like that, and it's absolutely traced. So it puts me in an uneasy, like I feel for them, that uncertain position. Like we're not sure what exactly is going to happen. Are they going to crack down on people like, oh, you lied on your taxes? Here we go. Here's the exact trace, which technically it would be very trivial for them to do that. Yeah. What I'm hoping is this. Actually, what I'm predicting is this: that there will be so many people in that situation. They're going to have a hard time going after everyone. I mean, I'm actually very curious to see what they're going to do. It's got to be tens of millions of people that have bought Bitcoin and probably aren't going to report it on their taxes. Hey, I mean, as far as non-compliance, I'm glad they did that. They're forced the rules so far that no one has a choice to not, the only option is to not comply, which is kind of cool. But yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think that they're figuring stuff out. Like obviously the IRS is new to this. They've only been working with Chainalysis for around 2 years officially now. But we'll have to see where things take us. And the other question I'll throw back to you is the control aspect. I did mention that Bitcoin was controllable, and I should have divulged a little bit more about what I felt when I said that. But I only said that because the U.S. and these Western bodies have such a strong control of these exchanges. Like even with the situation with Binance, I mean, there's a huge Chinese company with billions of dollars, and we arrested their CEO because they did not flag users from Iran on their platform. Like they didn't go and do the due diligence of like, oh, who's using a VPN and letting people buy into their system. So it's just a way, right? They're able to exert their pressure. They are able to determine where these funds are being used, and I hope that level of control, we don't get to see it for a long time.
Yep, there's a lot to note on that. One thing, just advice for people is, and I always encourage people, if you're buying your crypto on Coinbase or you're scanning your driver's license when you do crypto, then it's my test. Can it be known or can it not be known? I guess there's gray. Can it be known? Is it nearly impossible for it to be known? Or in the middle is like, would it really take some serious scrutiny, manpower, and resources for it to be known? It's varying degrees. So if it can be known, obviously, if you scan your driver's license and buy on Coinbase, then it may be in your interest to go ahead and be a good citizen and report that. I will say, though, with Bitcoin, you can buy Bitcoin, hold Bitcoin. That's not a taxable event. You can borrow against it. That's not a taxable event either. But I think ultimately, like, we need, just like you said, there's so many people out there that have done this or that are holding. My main concern, more so than the government coming back and being like, hey, you should have paid this or you should have done that, because in most instances, it'll likely be a slap on the wrist, or they'll just send you a bill, or they'll be like, what's going on? And you'll be like, unless you're like Roger Ver, some huge proponent of freedom and opponent of the state, and sometimes they make an example out of people. But one thing to be concerned with, too, is like, and this is where I thought you were going earlier, if they know all the Bitcoin that people have and the addresses and who owns it, regardless of whether they're reporting it properly and paying taxes on it properly or not, what if someday they try to come confiscate it in order to have some leg up geopolitically on their opposition? Because now we're in this, that book, The Soft War, by this lieutenant or major, where it talks about the power of taking energy and putting it into this digitally scarce asset. Pretty soon there's going to be war fought in cyberspace, and that he's already predicting that that's going to be a huge geopolitical power play. What if they come confiscate it from their citizenry, just as they did when the United States government in 1933 was declaring bankruptcy and wanted to hold on to that gold as a position of power, confiscating it from the people. And then this just comes back to, the more of us that reject government authority and kind of see that the emperor wears no clothes, but not in a naive way. Obviously, we have a very diabolical enemy that's capable of much treachery and violence. But at the same time, there's so many more of us. And the more people that reject the system entirely, see through the boogeyman presence that they try to have in our minds, that really is what controls us and has us living in fear. That's where they get all their power from. Ultimately, we can see, like, you know what? You could try to take it, and this is where strength in numbers comes into play, but it's like me, and I got 2,000 people in this same local area, and we're not giving up our gold. We're not giving up our digital gold. We're not giving up our Monero, our guns, or our land. So you guys can freaking beat it. That's where I'm at.
That's right. You know, what value is the gold when you don't have the value in your local community? That's where that's the insurance right there. There's no insurance like community. I love that, man. I think that you're spot on with that. And we're just investing in these technologies right now. And I think we're already to a point, like you mentioned the war thing. Back at Bitcoin Nashville, Trump mentioned, you know, we're starting a U.S. reserve for Bitcoin, or at least he's going to do that if he gets into office, with $100 million. We already stole those funds from other darknet markets and drug dealers. So yeah, it's kind of symbolic that that's where our Bitcoin reserve comes from. John, do we have time for me to mention the webinar?
Yeah, I actually had a good segue. So, you know, we're talking about tracking our money when using Monero, and how Monero is a great tool to avoid that. And we're giving all the scrutiny to sending these transactions online. But I'd venture to guess a good 99% of us, myself included, although I'm going to be transitioning. And we're, as I mentioned before, Hakeem and Above Phone have graciously sponsored the Live Free Now show and it's a few month sponsorship. So during the course of these next few months, I'm going to be myself getting acquainted with the Above book and the Above phone that I have as well. I saw somebody in the chat said they have an Above phone. They just haven't set it up yet. I'm still in the same boat. I've toyed with it. I've used it. I put the SIM card in. Everything worked smoothly, but then I went back to my vices. But we're all concerned about our transactions being tracked. 99% of us, our every move is being tracked by our mapping software. And of course, Hakeem has a free webinar coming up. I dropped the link there in the chat for you guys watching on YouTube. I'll drop it in the X feed as well. But go ahead and let us know what this free webinar is all about. I believe it's tomorrow for those of you that are watching today, the 23rd.
Yeah, it's tomorrow at 11 a.m. Central Time. This one's going to be about open source navigation. I mean, isn't this one of the most critical things we use our phone for? Like, how am I getting to a friend's house? How am I going on this road trip? And if we didn't have the apps on our phone, what would we do? Would you be able to tell the directions to maybe a grocery store across the city and back to your house? No, it's a little bit difficult. So like these maps have made their way into our lives for better or for worse. And I think we've gone too far because all of my friends who are my age can't tell directions. I'm like, all right, that's too far. We should at least know how to navigate. So going back to these open source maps, it's kind of like going back to paper maps. And I'm going to show you how you can navigate completely on your own using being completely offline. You won't even be connected to the internet. And you can create a map of your hometown and all the things you visit. And once you visit something once, you're never going to need to search it in Google Maps again. So as things progress and Google Maps becomes more woke and even more biased to where you search for food, it's only going to give you Walmart and McDonald's. It is not going to give you the nice little organic farm stand or the farmer's market. It's not going to matter because you're already going to have that on your private map. And the best part is you could share that private map with your local community, your freedom cell, right? So I'm going to basically show a model for how we can use this. And also, if you need to use Google Maps, I'll show you how to use it in the most private manner because we must. I mean, the reality of the situation is that Google and Apple have these huge point of interest databases where you can look up a business nearby and you'll get the address. You might not necessarily have that on an open source map, but we could get it on an open source map if we work together, if we crowdsource our knowledge and we start contributing to that open source map. So I'm going to show you how to do these things. It's going to be really good for you. It's going to be really good for the network. And I hope to see you there. Yeah, so it's tomorrow at 11 a.m. and we'll do it live streamed. I think we already have 1,000 people signed up so far. The live stream is getting pretty full, so please go ahead and sign up using the link.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Yep, and I'll drop it over there on Twitter for the people watching, and I'll drop it once more in the YouTube chat there. And thanks again for your support of the podcast. I always appreciate the cross promotion and working together to lift up our local freedom business community. And it's been really exciting for me to see you grow as an entrepreneur and to see your company absolutely explode. So I know there's a lot of overlap with our audiences and our communities, and I appreciate you taking good care of our Live Free Academy peeps.
Likewise, John. It's always a pleasure to join you on here and actually be figuring out what we need to do to live freely. Thanks, brother.
Let's go. Okay, all right. Thanks again, Hakeem. We'll hear from Hakeem again. He doesn't know, but I signed him up to come on the show regularly to drop little tidbits of stuff here and there. So, all right. Thanks so much, Hakeem. All right, friends. We're going to go ahead and wrap up today. It's been real. This has been the Live Free Now show, bringing you the news, views, tips, and tools you can use to live free, prosperous, and healthy life. Shout out to our sponsors, Off-Grid Dream Life. Off-Grid Dream Life, our good friend Jonathan England over at Earth Waking Village. They do this regular, incredible free webinar. It's a couple hours, and he's just rocking and rolling, teaching you all sorts of tips and strategies when it comes to mindset, spirituality, and it's all centered around this idea of like, I want to get off the grid. I want to live in an eco community. He's going to empower you to do it, and he's also going to give you the opportunity to join an existing eco community, one that is really setting the bar high when it comes to private realm, off-grid freedom communities. Again, you can sign up for free at offgriddreamlife.com. That's offgriddreamlife.com. And of course, our good friend Christian Yordanov, LiveLongerFormula.com, LiveLongerFormula.com. Unlock your health potential with a free metabolic function assessment. Absolutely free. What do you have to lose? Head over to LiveLongerFormula.com and book your appointment. If you're feeling lethargic, if you're having trouble sleeping, if you are just feeling like any skin conditions, whatever it may be a metabolic function issue, and Christian is going to help you get to the bottom of it with this free assessment. Again, that's LiveLongerFormula.com. And last but certainly not least, our good friend Hakeem is hosting a free webinar tomorrow. The URL, abovephone.com/webinar/?above=live-free. We'll drop it. We got it there in the show notes, and we'll drop it on the social platforms for you to click on that link there. But that's October 24th. That's tomorrow, 11 a.m. Stay in touch with him. Join his newsletter if you miss out on that live event because he's doing these free webinars regularly. All right, my friends, thank you so much for joining us. As usual, stay free out there. Peace and freedom.